Good morning and welcome to your Daily Game Face.
See, now the camera's not right and we get all kinds of problems going on here.
Dr. Kim Lannon, can you fix me?
I can fix you. I think so. Hang on.
Okay,
Let me come in.
Welcome to your Daily Game Face. I'm Dr. Kim Lannon, and I see myself. It's fine. Sorry for the technical problems, people. Lou and I are having a moment this morning. There's Lou. No one can see you.
That's delayed.
I know, but nobody... See, no one saw you. Okay, sorry for that, everyone. Oh, there is Lou. Lou's coming around to fix my camera because it's all my fault this morning.
It's not your fault.
It's always my fault. He didn't get my text. It's very hot here. Everyone's listening to the problems of us this morning. Our interesting relationship. Lou's yelling at me this morning.
I'm not yelling at you. I wasn't yelling at you. Oh, wow.
It wasn't a yell. Anyway, good morning.
No,
Welcome
I didn't get your
Daily
text.
Game Face. Let's start this over. I'm Dr. Kim Lannon, and
because everyone's after my attention this morning.
Lou Blasi. Well, this is not
and
my
I'm just
problem.
trying
You're
to,
my producer for my time.
I know. I'm trying to do my job, and no one's letting me.
Listen, therapy for you after, not during.
Gotcha.
So you get me all spun up now. So you have to have a sip of my Dunkin' Donuts coconut iced coffee this morning.
Coconut iced coffee. That's what I've been getting.
Dunkin' Donuts needs to start sponsoring me.
Yes.
So it's 9:48.
Yep.
And I was running a minute behind, but you were running more behind than me. And
well, that's not necessarily true.
And I love the fact that you didn't get my text and the fact that it's 75 degrees out with 100% humidity and we're supposed to hit 95 today. I'm so excited. It will be like a lovely little sweat box in here.
Yep.
You what?
What could possibly go wrong?
Oh, well, clearly a lot this morning. I'm in a great mood. I came in and, it's Lou.
What?
Nothing. Oh, listen. Keep your stuff inside your space.
Stop yelling at me.
Stop yelling at me. Oh. Okay. Well, good morning. Anyway, so lots to talk about.
Yes.
Are you going to be able to manage today?
I'm perfectly fine.
Okay. I don't know about that. But,
yeah.
Okay, so first of all, what a fantastic, beautiful weekend here in New England, at least up in this area. I was up in the mountains with some lovely people that came to visit. I took a little vacay.
Nice.
Did you know I was taking a little vacay?
I did not.
So I
didn't contact me or anything. I didn't get your text.
Off. What?
I didn't get your text that you're on vacation.
Well, you don't get a lot of my text apparently.
I know.
So I took a little vacay up to the mountains, and some people from Florida came up. Some big cat people that work at Big Cat Rescue, and we had a lovely weekend of eating wonderful food and hiking and going to the top of Mount Washington. Oh, by the way, at the top of Mount Washington, it went from like beautiful weather to 50-mile-an-hour winds with like 2 seconds. It was
really.
I couldn't even stand on top of the observatory tower because I thought I was going to go flying over the mountain because it was quite something. That weather. Well, it's the worst weather that you can possibly get is on top of the Mount Washington. It's. Did you hear what I just said? The Mount Washington.
The Mount Washington. It's okay.
That's like the Facebook.
Yep.
And I was very interested in showing them and having them see the whole thing, and it was that weather that if you're like you're out in the wind, it like makes you drool.
Yeah.
that it was like whipping past you. So it was beautiful, and the weather up there changes so quickly. You can be 70 on the bottom of the mountain. By the time you're up to the top, it's 20 and snowing. And literally the clouds rolled in, and I thought, oh, this is not good. But it was very cold. I actually had a hot chocolate. At the bottom, I was drinking iced tea. At the top, I was drinking hot chocolate. On
previous shows, I used to interview the people who stayed at the observatory through the winter. And that was fun. I've always wanted to do that. I always wanted to go up for a few days.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful hike. It takes about 4 hours to get up if you go up Top Kerman's Ravine side, and 4 hours to go down unless you cheat and take the van or the cog, which I'm all about doing the down part on that because I never have enough time to go down. But the beauty...
Do you know that more people die going down mountains than up mountains?
Well, so this is an interesting thing. So given the athleticism of it, because there's so many mountaineers out there, and I saw lots of people doing the Appalachian Trail or parts of it, and they were talking about it. But so when you go up to the top of Mount Washington, it's a psychological endeavor for sure, because I'm always very careful when we hike it, obviously, because I don't want to die. But when you go up the ravine side, right, right now there's still extreme skiers, so it's all still covered in that bowl of snow. And so they hike up and then they ski down, and there's no stop. So that's one of the problems of death up there, is that, you know, they have avalanche, the falling, whatever. But in the summer, when I have been on that mountain, and this time of year, it's people leaning over to take pictures. Yeah. And getting a little too close to the edge, particularly selfies. So there's a wall, and I'm not laughing, but there's a wall up. It's an irony of laughter. There's a wall up in the big lodge or whatever that's at the top that lists everyone who's died and how they died and whatever. And time and again, it's basically, I mean, I sort of put tongue in cheek to it, that it's leaning too far over to take the picture of the flower or the waterfall or the whatever, because you don't realize that it's, you know, 600, 700 foot drop. So 6,288 feet up to the top, and that's a long fall down that ravine.
So do they list cause of death?
Yes.
Selfie?
Pictures or leaning too far over, or, you know, something. So it's a very dangerous mountain, you know, likened to Kilimanjaro. Not quite the same in terms of altitude, but it's very deadly to walk up that mountain. It's very dangerous. You can't just be a novice to go up there. Like if people go up, I've seen people climb that in the summer with me in flip-flops. Oh. Big mistake, because once you get above the tree line, this is, you know, if you're an athlete, you go in like the gear, you know, get different weather jackets, you've got all the different boots, the sock changes, the food, the water and everything. Yeah. So people show up in flip-flops and shorts.
I bet
and
John
you start
brings
at 80
the gear.
at the bottom and 25 at the top. It's quite shocking.
I bet John brings the gear.
Oh, well, so I have a nice little arrangement with John. He carries a 25-pound backpack of all my stuff. Okay. And I Billy goat up the mountain and then meet him at the top. He's always like, thanks a lot. Well. So, but it is a wonderful mountain. If you ever get out to the Northeast, if you're not from here, or if you are from here and you've never done that and you are a mountaineer, it's part of the 4,000 plus foot mountain club people, and you can, you know, people up here in New England try to get in all the 4,000 footers. I think we've only done 12, but you know, but we consistently do Mount Washington every year, or at least try to, because it is always spectacular. And did you know the thing I do at the top of a mountain every time I complete a mountain?
What is your ceremony?
I do a handstand at the top on the edge.
Okay. So you're going to be up on the wall with...
Luce is like, oh, what?
You're going to be on the wall with handstand.
Probably. Well, that's, you know, the joke. The running joke is that she'll be over the edge. So it always makes people that are on the top of the mountain with me, when I go to do the handstand, people are like, oh, my God. I try not to get too close to the edge, especially Mount Washington. But I do it with the vista behind. But it's my ritual of every top of a mountain that I accomplish, no matter how many times I do it, I always do a handstand at the top as the finishing moment. Sometimes it takes an extra couple of times to get the handstand to stay after all that hiking.
It's been a while, so.
But it's very cool, so I highly recommend it. And then if you go up to the observatory, knowing that I'm a big cat person, that Marty, the lovely cat that had lived there for 15 plus years, had passed away, and they have a new baby. And I think his name is Nimbus. I did not see him, but he lives there year-round, and he's always up there, including in the winter. And they have wonderful, cute little pictures of him. So he's the mascot of Mount Washington.
I want to spend a week up there in the winter.
That's what you and John can go right on up there and tent yourselves to your happiness content with fires and whatever you need to do up there.
No fires. You're going to be inside.
Oh, no, he
Winds
are
like 80 miles an hour.
Camp? Oh, he wants to camp.
No, that's not happening.
And I said, you have fun.
In the winter?
I'll stay in my bed and breakfast with room service.
I'll be down at the Mount Washington.
Exactly, right at the bottom of the hill. Very famous hotel. The Creepy Shining Hotel.
No, that's not the Shining Hotel.
No, but it reminds me of the Shining, because the bottom of the hill, you can see it. So anyway, so that was a lovely weekend, and now it's going to be 9 million degrees the rest of the week here, which is fabulous, because I'd rather have that than snow, and that will last for about a couple of days, and then we'll go back to 20 degrees here.
Isn't it going to be sub 60 this weekend? Is it this weekend?
Yes, it was. So we're having 90 today,
Yep.
80 tomorrow, something high on Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday we're dropping back into the 60s and 50s.
50s, yeah, for a high.
Of course, because it's Memorial Day, and Memorial Day is notoriously cold.
It is?
Yes. Where have you been?
I'm not keeping track of such things.
Well, I'm very weather dependent because of my exercise and sport activities.
Yep.
You know, can't go flying out into the world in like shorts if it's 20.
Okay.
So,
yep.
Anyway, so there's the first part of my weekend, and then exciting stuff because I haven't talked about this in about a month, but the Human Baton, as you know, I'm part of. I'm the performance advisor to the Human Baton, and we're getting ready to launch our socially distanced, not distracted, which is an inside joke now, but a socially distanced athlete challenge coming June 21st. If anyone listening wants to be an athlete and do the challenges, certainly reach out to me and I can get you the link. But it's 6 weeks of challenges, one per week. You have 60 seconds to do the challenge that we put out. I can't tell you what they are.
Yep.
Because then that would be, loading the deck, but 60 seconds to complete each week. The way you do it, you have to get it in on the right timeline. You have to follow the guidelines to make sure it's done correctly. So for instance, if it was, hollow body pull-ups, how many can you do in 60 seconds in the correct form and all the guidelines we give and so on. And what you do is you win points and you also win leadership status on the board, and then you win cash and prizes and really cool swag.
Ooh.
So that is in the beginning stages of getting you to do the athlete challenges that would get you set up to be a, I call it the road warrior Human Baton itself, so you can do the drift cars, the Thundercat, the endurance horse racing, the jumping out of planes. These are all the things that actually build the athlete up to be able to do those things. But if you don't want to actually be a Human Baton, you can still be part of the Human Baton by participating this way and winning stuff.
Nice.
Good stuff.
I like it. Can non-world-class athletes
we're going to
participate?
have, it can be anyone from couch potato, never done a thing in your life, all the way up through to Olympic level, whoever wants to join. So there's an advanced level, and then there's a intermediate level. In terms of the 6-week challenge, there's you have to participate. Once you start in one level, you can't switch over to the other. So if you start in the advanced, you have to stay in the advanced. If you start in the intermediate, you can't move up, but you can stay. But your leaderboard goes with you, and anybody can participate. So the socially distanced part of it is that everyone's been so locked up and not been able to connect. This is a way for us all to reconnect. It's global. It's a way to build a community that you haven't been able to do before, and then get involved in doing something bigger with the sport franchise of all those cool sports that I'm doing with everybody. So it's going to be super fun. The challenges. So I'm getting ready to film one of my portions of the challenge guidelines for one of the. I think I'm number 6. I think I'm the 6th week, and I've giggled to myself because Eric from Sweden has said, okay, this is what you're going to do, and I have to giggle because one of the things he's asked me to do, I haven't done in 2 years. So I was like, oh, I got to see if I can still do that. So, and I can, so that was a good thing. So if he's listening, hey, Eric out in Sweden, it may not be pretty right now, but in a couple weeks when I go to film, it's going to be spectacular.
Nice. Yep.
If anything else, the Human Baton has absolutely helped me get back into even better shape than I could have imagined, because I'm always having to keep ahead to make sure that I,
can
don't
keep
look
up.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
So it's very inspiring for me. But again, if someone wants to join, you do not have to be an athlete of great epic proportion. You just have to be interested in having fun, connecting, watching. Even if there's 5,000 people on the leaderboard and you're 2012 or 5,000, it doesn't matter. It's just the fact that it's super fun and it's a neat integrative thing to do. So it will be on our website. It will be on thb.live, T as in the Human Baton, thb.live, and you get to sign up. But if you're interested in the link to join the challenges, certainly reach out to me either here or on my gamefaceconsulting.com, and I will link you in. You can be part of the challenge.
thb.live.
thb.live. Yes.
Like it.
.live. So you can put that up for me, Lou, in your production-ness of the world.
Sure.
Lou's just staring at me. I love it. Thanks, Lou. So I had all these little things. Oh, and then one more housekeeping event for the week, because we are coming into summer, and well, because of Memorial Day here.
You're gonna laugh. I already had it up.
Huh?
I already had it up. I had it saved in one of the scenes.
This is why you're the rock star.
Yeah, right. Okay.
I wish if people are watching, that's great. Oh, look at that. He's got it up. The Race Adventure, socially distanced athlete competition. Compete to win cash and prizes. There it is. It is up and running. If you guys are watching, certainly you can see that, and it will be fantastic. And oh my God, it's so exciting. It's so much fun. We've been working so hard on this, and the producers that started
working on it a long time.
Well, the producers that started it had they brought me in just about a year ago, a little over a year ago, and so they've been working on it for from baby to concept to now. But oh my God, it's been in the works for a while, so we're just getting really going, and it's exciting, and it'll be super fun. And then eventually it will get up and running with all the big events, and you guys will see the big human baton competitions and all the jumping out of planes and us running around like on boats and cars, and me getting covered in dust in Texas.
Yeah.
So given the fact that we're going into the summer season, which is abnormal for the race season for running, because no one trains in the dead of summer here. Right. Well, I am going to be training in the dead of summer. God knows why I'm doing this, because I'm crazy. And this is why I'm a psychologist. But I'm getting ready to start training. This coming Monday officially starts the first day of Boston Marathon training for the 125th running of the Boston Marathon, which will be in person on October 11th, I think.
Yeah.
Of 2021. And I will be running for the New England Patriots Foundation again, because they are my team. Mm-hmm. Although I do like the Tampa Bay Buccaneer Patriots.
Oh, stop it.
Because, and I do have a couple clients that have just made it after the football pro days. They went to their pro days, did very well, and then I have several clients that have recently been signed on to new teams. So now I have to spread my allegiance to. I've got too many teams now. Really? I'm Patriots, Buccaneers.
Yeah. Don't want to say?
No, because then anyone knew.
Give away.
Then it whittles down the field. So I've got 3 other teams that I have been able to.
No, you don't have to have allegiance to the team. You have allegiance to the player, and then you just root for the Patriots.
Then. You don't understand. That means I have to have multiple things going on, Lou. Yeah. Because they all play. They're going to all play on the same day. This is what's going to happen to me.
Well, the NFL plays on Sunday. Yeah.
But they're going to play like when I have to be like moving my,
Yep.
Here goes my fall. But it's very exciting for me because it is the 125th running. It will be my 7th Boston Marathon in a row.
Is it full? Are they limited capacity?
It's a limited capacity, so it's 20,000 runners on the course.
As opposed to what's normal?
35,000.
Okay. Yep.
So it'll be 20,000 runners on the course on the day. It opened up for a virtual race, which last year we did the whole thing virtual, which I did, and it's they opened up for 70,000 virtual runners, which obviously anybody can do, right? Because when you sign up, you just run like I did last year, the 26.2 miles in your neighborhood, 9 times around a 5K loop. You remember.
Yep.
It was very entertaining. It was a beautiful day. But I, of course, am looking for people that want to help sponsor me, because I'm going to need to raise at least $10,000, which makes me twitch a little because I know it's the time of a pandemic sort of ending.
Yeah.
And people were struggling and all that stuff. So it's been a year and a half since I've fundraised for something for the New England Patriots. So now we're back in full swing. So I will be scrambling to do it for a good cause, because it's actually a really great cause. And I give them kudos that they help roughly 20 plus charities. It's like a funnel through charity. New England Patriots, the Myra Craft Foundation, we help, we pick, 10 to 20 other charities that are worthy when they submit their applications year to year, that get $10,000 plus grants or scholarships or donations from us to them by what we do and give out really cool things to help them out. So lots of really great community-based organizations that have to do with drug and alcohol rehabs, veterans organizations, animal causes, domestic violence, recycling and environmental issues, women's and children's issues, elderly. So we've given out to great things every year, and it's new every year, so you have to reapply. If you're going to be a charity that wants to get our benefit from our charity, you reapply. There's a timeline. Certainly I can give everyone that link, but right now it's just me running the Boston Marathon for the New England Patriots Foundation, the team for the New England Patriots, and this will be my second time running for them. I am very proud to run for them, and and it will be the start of it will be right in sync with the start of the season too.
Oh, that's right.
And we will probably be, and I don't know this for sure, but I'm thinking we'll probably be into almost full capacity back into the stadium.
Oh, sure. I mean, Fenway's...
Well, we weren't. We were going to be at 22%.
Really? I thought everything was...
that was before the mask lifting and all this stuff. But now I think we're going to go back up.
Fenway's full capacity this weekekend.
See? Yeah. You know more than me.
Yeah.
And I should know that.
Yeah, I'm very excited.
I'm
going to tune into the game just to see the full capacity. Yeah.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that they will be. So I would imagine we will be as well. But I just hate to say, oh, we will be, and then who knows, because it's October. So it's exciting. So there's lots of things going on, have happened.
How come there's no talk of the third wave, by the way?
What?
How come there's no talk of the third wave?
Oh, here we go.
Because, I mean, we went down in the summer last year, too, and I know we got the vaccines going, but it's funny. It's funny.
I'm just looking at Lou across the abyss of my studio.
It's not an abyss.
Okay. It's an abyss. This is what kept us from COVID, from each other,
Yes.
This glass window. Anyway, how was your son's graduation, by the way?
Son's graduation was fine. That was another little COVID issue, but that's whole thing.
Okay.
No,
was it a beautiful graduation, though? He graduated.
It was
He's an
nice.
amazing superstar. You're a very proud daddy.
Yes. It was nice. He had so much graduation bling. All the threads and Phi Beta Kappa pin, and he just had a lot of stuff going on.
That's cool.
Him and his baby blue Converse All-Stars.
I love it. I love it. There's nothing better. There you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was great. And everyone's excited, and he's, did
Very
great
good.
and ready to move on.
Excellent. Well, congratulations to your son.
Yes, thank you.
That's fantastic. And you'll tell me the story of the COVID issue afterwards.
It's just a weird ceremony.
Well, cool.
It was weird the way they did it, but Aiden's mom told me, and it made certain sense, that they had put all this together months ago.
Yes.
Before the current conditions. And
right.
Under the current conditions, it seemed a little much.
Well, right. But they had to plan for it so they could do it, so that they wouldn't have issues.
And they were bluffing about the vaccine, too, as I thought they were.
I told you that. Did I not tell you this?
Yes, you did.
I told you. I said, just go. You will have no issue getting in.
And for those of you who are listening, they required 2 shots and a 2-week buffer. And I wasn't able to pull that off. I was like a 7-day buffer as opposed to a 2-week buffer.
Well, you were like, you had a 5-day buffer left. I think you had like 5 days left. And I told Lou, I said, they're not going to check. And that's not that I'm purporting for people to run out and be misbehaved. But the bottom line is, you are vaccinated and you had the protection and you've been doing the right thing and all that stuff. So the likelihood of being an issue compared to the people that were doing things saying that they had been vaccinated but hadn't.
Yeah.
So I'm all about people being honest, obviously. But I said to Lou, hey, Lou, you've got only a 5-day window. I think you're good.
And I don't want to knock UVM because they did a great job getting through this year. And they got the kids through
very, very
and everybody... no big problems up there, and they got everybody through. And I was there the day Biden was elected. That was an interesting.
Well, UVM, so day. University of Vermont, Vermont itself, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire, we're all 70-something% with vaccine and dropping of the numbers. The Northeast is the safest place according to the CDC for the guidelines right now around COVID and being calm. Now go down south, not so much.
Oh.
Which I will be down there doing THB stuff and thundercatting at the end of June.
All right.
But I'm vaccinated, so whatever that means to anybody doesn't really matter, I don't think, to most people, but nonetheless. So we have to start talking about things.
Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Everyone's like, thank God she stopped talking about all that crap. Okay, so this week,
Yes.
there's so many things in the world to be talking about. I have like a list. But what I thought this week, because of what we were talking about last week, is, you know how we talk about people getting stuck and like that they don't move off their stuck spots?
Yeah.
And which is most of the time, and obviously people come to see me because they're stuck. And most people get stuck in life with remember I've talked about the help rejecting complainers of the world. Like they want the help and then they complain about the help that they get because it's not, everything's, well, that's impossible,
Right.
but you should try this, but I don't want to do that because I can't do that. Like it's,
Yeah.
So what I thought about was, instead of focusing on just talking about that as the problem, is really talking about the process of changing a story, changing a person's narrative, or you, for instance, or me, being individuals that we can edit our story.
Yeah.
So the fact that when we come to the table on a daily basis and we wake up in the morning and say, here's the issue going on for the day or the week or the year, is that if you're bought into that, and I'll go back to using addiction because it's such a great topic to be able to use because it's a stuck point, right? Is a person is dealing with the ism or the affliction of something, and that's their focus all the time, and they're stuck because they're not generating or editing out their story to be something else. They've bought in and become incredibly consistent with the actual negative, toxic, driving narrative story that they've told themselves, that they've bought into, that they've listened to in other people, they've perceived a certain way, and now this, as a psychologist, this sounds probably pretty weird, but we're good reporters of our experience by and large, but we are technically not good reporters of our story because it's our side, right?
Right.
So we have a very biased, obvious, right? We have a very biased way of looking at our story that misses out on a lot of pieces that when you're stuck, you are lacking those pieces to generate the alternative. That's why you keep getting stuck, is because you think that I can't, I won't, that's impossible, I've tried that, of course that won't work, because you're not going past the story you've created. And the story has been reinforced. And people often say, I can't do that. If you're able to consistently, this is like addiction or like weight loss. I was talking to someone over the weekend about weight loss, is that when you're consistently able to gain weight and be heavy and overeat, and you bought into the narrative that it's this, that, and the other thing and why, or with addiction, right? If you're consistent about that and you're good at doing that, right?
Yep.
Then you can be consistent about doing the other thing to be good at that. It's just changing and editing the storyline to go the other direction. People don't look at it like that because they get stuck in the fact that they're trapped. They can't do anything about it. That's not true. That's just a storyline that you've made that doesn't move you. And so
But that's a comfortable storyline because it absolves responsibility. If you don't have control over it, you're not responsible for it. People don't want to take responsibility for their outcomes.
See, you're super smart because that is true. That is really the bottom line, and people get very upset, if you don't, because it's like, oh, well, how could you say it's my fault? Well, it's not about fault or blame. It's about you don't want to take responsibility for making the change by making a different choice to edit your story that you've had that's led you to be where you are. So so going to like the framework of addiction, or for eating, for instance, if you're an overeater who doesn't exercise, who's having obesity issues, you're a person who is stressed to the nines and overusing opiates, and you can't get away from it, and now you're like lost everything, right? Whatever the storyline is, your storyline is getting you into that space of, well, I can't do anything about it, and if I did something about it, then I have to take responsibility, and that's a fear of the unknown, because I'd actually have to let go. And what it is that grieving the loss of what is the storyline at the moment. It's grieving the loss of
victimhood.
Of what?
Of victimhood.
Yeah, you call it that. But that is giving that up. It's like, oh my God, I have to give up this storyline of, I can't I can't say that, oh, well, tomorrow I can do it. Tomorrow's a different day. This is in the way. I can't. It's all these reasons that keep you trapped, because all those reasons are a story. And you're not editing the story. You're always just going with the storyline. So you never have a new page to start on, even though every day you're given one. But if you just keep rewriting the same page over and over,
right,
it's like Groundhog Day.
And this is why most addiction programs are centered in, quote unquote, the higher power.
Mm-hmm.
Because, dirty little secret, the higher power is you.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you take responsibility for yourself and you really get yourself right in your head and say, hey, what can I do here to make this change or make something different? Because no one's trapped.
Right.
You just perceive that you're trapped. You perceive that you're trapped because you bought into the storyline that you've told yourself and had people and yourself reinforce, and you're taking no responsibility because, and really, and people get very mad.
Yep.
Which means that they're more trapped in their minds because how could you say that about me?
Right.
Well, oh, did you hear that?
I don't know what that was, but
I don't know
I heard
either.
that.
It was like, that was a weird leak-in of like, the police are coming. But people are so trapped in their storyline that it pushes their buttons, emotionally triggers them into, how dare you challenge that I have any choice in this? How dare you challenge that I am doing this to myself on purpose? Well, clearly it's not like that. You have something that's happened. We talked about this last week. Something's happened. You become into your ism, affliction of addiction of whatever it is, or, eating, drinking, drugging, gambling, sex, whatever. But you are able to then stop it and then look at the stuff underneath it. And if you're changing the storyline of how you perceive something underneath it, that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Right. So, there's a couple of really great colleagues out there that do similar podcasts, and I often refer back to this one. Can't remember her name, but she talks about a letter that she got from a person, a woman, and it was fascinating because the woman writes this letter to her and says, I've been married for 10 years. My life has been amazing, but 2 years ago, my sex life stopped. It's been really rough. And then last night I overheard my husband talking on the phone at 12:30 in the morning to a coworker very intimately. He must be having an affair. I'm devastated. If I leave, then my children don't have an intact family. And if I stay, then I can't trust my husband anymore off of this one scenario. So there's her storyline. And then on the back side of it, there's the other letter that, the generated other letter of this other person writing in and saying, 2 years ago, my father died. I was devastated. I have great loss. My wife doesn't understand because my wife's parents died when she was younger. This was someone I was really close to. I've become very separated from my family at home because I have this person at work that really understands me. I wish that my wife would understand me like this person understands me. And so I don't know what to do. They're a couple.
Yeah.
The two letters
You
come
got the
from
reciprocal
the same
letters.
couple.
Yeah.
Totally different storylines because look at where they're both coming from. She's coming from a place of, in the backside of that story in her letter also was that her father had cheated with a coworker. So she made the storyline around that.
Sure.
Now, whether he was having an affair or not, we don't know. Her storyline was that she had that there. And his storyline was that he had loss and he was just finding solace, not having an affair, with this woman who was able to listen to him because she understood him and he wished for her, the other, the wife. Here they are both writing their own experience, but their storyline is based in their own perception of being, what am I doing here to not take responsibility? She's not asking him like, hey, what's going on with you? She didn't care really, according to him, about him losing his father because it didn't faze her because it didn't mean the same thing. She went right to he's having an affair, and he was all about like, I need someone to support me. I need someone to love me and give me the feedback. I wish it was my wife, but it's not, so I have to go somewhere else. So in that story of those two people, someone like me would come in and look at both of them and say, your storylines need to be re-edited because your storylines are based on your own experience only,
Right.
which is all you have, but you're not taking responsibility to say, hey, what's going on the other side underneath it, to really look at you're looking at the surface. So it's like you're looking at using drugs, you're looking at using alcohol, you're looking at using food.
Yeah.
Okay, we take that away and we strip it down and everybody's letters are on the table, but now what's really underneath that's driving it? And that's where the story gets edited. That's where you become the editor of your own story by saying, oh, I realize that my father was having this affair, and I think that, if I hear that happening over there, it could be that, but it also could be these other things. Knowing that you don't jump to the conclusion, because it very well could be that, but just so that you don't get stuck or trapped into feeling like you can't leave, you can't stay, because you're not getting all the facts. Or on the other side of the husband of, you got to give your wife the opportunity by going to her and saying, hey, I need to edit my story by telling you that just because this happened for you, this is what's happening for me, and I need more support because I'm really struggling. So, but people don't do that.
Yeah.
People get stuck.
But here's the thing about this. Each of those couples is going to create that story out of their storyline. That is actually, may not have happened at that point, but that is actually what's going to happen.
Correct.
Because of the thought process and the way you react to it, you have control over the outcome. In this case, it's a negative outcome for them, but they don't understand they're controlling it. They're creating it, both individually in their own way. And people understand this negative part of it about controlling negative outcomes. Right. They talk about it all the time. They fear about it. They talk about their friends who are creating their own negative outcomes. They see that power, but very few people see the power of creating positive outcomes. And they don't understand how it works the other way, too.
Well, they don't understand how it works because they're wed to the consistent pattern that they've been in. Consistency breeds consistency. And that's what I always say about, in athleticism, and we talked about this last week about how it's so similar, is that if you're consistently using a drug, or you're consistently drinking and you're always drunk, you're always high, you're always eating, you're always heavy, well, that's what you're going to get.
Yep.
But if you practice consistency doing one thing, then you can practice consistency doing another thing. It's taking a habit and making a new habit. And you don't have to let go of something 100% to start a new habit. You can just gradually move it over. Same thing with rewriting a story for yourself. And it's not like, this is what CBT is based on, cognitive behavioral therapy, is modifying your storyline essentially, so that your thought process creates a different feeling, so you have a different outcome and behavior. So if you're an overeater, or let's not even say overeater, if you're a person who's eating for emotional reasons and you've become extremely heavy and you aren't changing habits to consistently meet the needs of a calorie deficit, for instance, well, then you're still going to be heavy. You're still going to be emotionally eating for heaviness versus I'm going to start eating and changing my eating habit while working on the underside of the fact that I have loss, or I have regrets, or I have loneliness, or I have all these other unresolved issues. When you're working with anything in addiction, which that is part of, and there's so many people with afflictions of addiction in the world, that's why I always go back to that, is that people don't look at the underlying reasons. I can't tell you how many times I've had clients come in and just last week I had clients come in saying, I have an addiction, but I'm sober now. But you have to do the work underneath, and the work is hard because you actually have to look at what brought that experience to the table. Why are you a family, that, all has the same issue? Why are you the family that all sits on your phone instead of connecting? Why are you the family that completely avoids each other? Why are you, whatever it is? But but so many people don't like to look at that because, well, it's scary. That makes the trap feeling feel really out of control. Right. You have to take responsibility for your part in something, and then people don't like to do that, especially when it comes to those particular issues. Or they have to externalize it, which I've talked about many times, of it's not my fault that I eat, that I drink, that I do these things.
They want the problem solved by outside changes. Right. And that's That's ultimately, it's exhausting and self-defeating to be
Right.
chasing outside changes because you can't control all of those
No.
facets, especially other people, and expecting them to change to fix your problem
Exactly.
is, again, exhausting and self-defeating.
And when you and when you have, it's exhausting and self-defeating, and when you don't take control back for yourself, and that's through responsibility of what your actions are, what your thoughts are, what your narrative is, then consistently, this is the perfect thing for athletes, right? What happens? You don't do well. The
Right.
performance is terrible because you've bought into whatever that storyline is, and it will keep, practice makes performance.
Mm-hmm.
Practice that's practiced negatively makes negative performance.
Right.
I mean, that's how the brain works. If you practice perfectly, which there is no perfect, but perfectly practicing the practice of being positive is going to get you better than not. But if you're just practicing a more consistent, healthy strategy across the board, whether it's athleticism, eating, social action, financial responsibility, like whatever it is, you're still going to go on the upswing because you're practicing it in a productive way. If your narrative is, I grew up in poverty, I grew up in a terrible abusive home, the reason why people end up back in that cycle is because they stay in the narrative that the family of the generational family has met for them. And that's why people have those great stories of like, I got out of the socioeconomic status that I was in, I moved out of the projects, I became successful, I went to college, I'm the first person that did this, right? Because they've broken the storyline. Right.
Yep.
And I've told stories to you before about like how people, that I teach at the college that, they'll come in and they'll have like something that they're late on an assignment or something. And the stories that I get are sometimes heart wrenching because it's, I live with 8 of my family members and they don't like that I'm going to college. So I've had a kid that had their paper taken from them and ripped up.
Oh my God.
I've had from their family, oh, what do you think, you're better than us? So it's hard to break that storyline. So I'm compassionate and feel empathy for the storylines that people have, and who are trying to break them. But it's super hard when you have people around you, they're help rejecting complainers that pull you, they're constantly pulling at you because they don't want you to have success. And there's a lot of people like that. And it's an externalized thing, and it's super hard.
You have to take this, and we're back to baby steps, but you have to take this in baby steps. And the first step is to challenge your thoughts, to understand that everything you think and feel is not necessarily real. The woman thinking that her husband's having an affair, very dominant thought, very much part of her story, made perfect sense to her.
Right.
But that was all threat generation.
Right.
Right? It didn't exist at the time, and you have to learn to challenge those thoughts.
Well, and so I back it up to a baby step even pre-thought, which is the trigger that created the thought. Being aware. So people usually will know what their thought is.
Yep.
Or they'll know their feeling, but the trigger. What is triggering it? And that's one of the best ways to start changing your narratives. What's triggering you to start thinking, to feel, to eat, to think, to feel, to drink, to think, to feel, to drug, to think, to feel, to have too much sex or whatever it is. What's the trigger? So the trigger is, it's usually poor self-esteem because someone has said something to you, because someone has reinforced a pattern in you of feeling irrelevant, inferior, lacking, shame.
Well, her husband has diminished her worth.
Yes.
Because they haven't been close.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that hits home to the core belief system of I'm not enough.
By the way, another misthought.
Right.
Because the fact they weren't close wasn't because she wasn't worthy.
Right. But her storyline was
Right.
that she wasn't worthy because in her mind she'd created that if she was worthy or her mother was worthy, her father wouldn't have had the affair with the coworker, therefore, right? So it all gets put together. But that's the work that you have to do underlying all these things that make you who you are in the moment, who feels stuck and feels like you don't have any other choices. Because that's what I hear that time and again. Even with my star athletes at times, they're like, I don't have a choice.
Yep.
Oh, no, you have a choice. And I'll give them choices because sometimes they don't want to do the work. And I'll give them 10 choices. And then they're like, oh,
Yeah.
I didn't realize I had that choice. Because people, if I say, you take a professional athlete. I'm in my head generating a couple in my head that I know. And their storyline oftentimes is if I if I don't play or if I don't compete, then I won't have this and this, and then no one will like me or no one
Right.
will love me, and they'll be angry at me.
That's the self.
Right.
Death of self.
And that's and there
Yeah.
and I think in a couple of the cases that I'm thinking of, that would be true. There would be people that would be angry at them. But I always put out that the choice is that you can suffer another decade and you're making millions of dollars and you have all the kudos, but you're miserable. Or you can tweak this and you have them be a little angry at you and see where their colors truly lie. And we can back it down a little bit and see how to play this out a little bit so that you have more relief and less toxicity around you and start doing that. And that's a baby step process. It's not all in or all out, but oftentimes it's about the self-conscious shame of how it's going to impact someone else when you make the choice versus how is this going to impact me?
Right.
At the end of the day, how does this make me feel better? How does this make me? And because you'll get the other side of that is, well, that's selfish. No, it's not. No, it's not. But we've been socialized into being told or buying into a storyline that if we do things in the service of ourselves, we're
Right.
selfish. Whereas in psychology and positive psychology, if you don't take care of yourself first, now that doesn't mean you neglect other people. It just means you've got to be clean. You got to clean your house first before you can help clean another.
But this dominance of thought that I'm worried about what other people are going to think if I do this. The important question is, how are you going to feel if you do this? What are you going to think if you do this?
Right.
And what happens is eventually once you get that set and you feel good about that, A, you start attracting the people who fit that personality, and B, it matters less and less what other people think. I'm good with it. I'm okay.
Right. And I think that just had this conversation with one of my friends this weekend about like how as time has gone on, even in my own life and without disclosing anything, I've had to come to a moment in the past 15 years where I've had, because I grew up with being, told that everybody else's opinion counts more than anything else, essentially.
Right.
I mean, that's a paraphrase, but essentially that's it. But the past 15 years I've been working on, like, not even working on it, I just let go eventually. Like, it doesn't matter. As long as you're not hurting someone else, you're carrying your boundary, because the most important thing is making sure at the end of the day you feel okay, that you've been kind and compassionate, but you haven't let other people cross over your boundaries and sacrifice your own integrity so they can be happy. Yeah. I mean, there's especially when you're a giver. In this field, psychologists and psychiatrists, we're givers, like, and we give and give and give, and people will take and take and take, in our own families, in our own lives, including our, client base at times. But if you have really good boundaries and you set that up, you walk away from day to day going, it's at the end of the day, no one died, no one's upset. And if someone is, it's, unless you did it on purpose to hurt somebody. Right. Yeah. It's, so, and living with that over years and years and years, and I have clients that come in their 60s and 70s and have not gotten to that point yet, and I've often, I'll say, who cares? And they'll be like, what? Everybody cares. I'm like, not really. Yep. Nobody really cares. And I love doing that with teenagers, because teenagers are so much in the spotlight effect of everybody's looking at me, everyone's thinking about me, everyone's talking about me. I'm like, actually, nobody's doing that, because everybody's doing exactly what you're doing, and no one's looking at you. Right. It's like nobody cares, but it should be doing that in your 40s and 50s and 60s. Still, that's really hard, because the storyline is that if I do that, someone will think this. If I do that, someone will think that. Well, at the end of the day, what do you think? Yep. Did you feel good about what you did or didn't do? Did you feel good about saying no because you didn't want to do something or that you didn't have time? Right. I mean, changing the narrative, changing the storyline so that you feel good about you. We're such a culture of feeling good for other people and making other people feel good to our detriment. And
here's why you should never give up control of the narrative.
Right.
Is that your thoughts, this landed for me, it's everything you talk about, everything every book talks about is the same principle, but they dress it up in different language and give it to you in different ways. You got to find the thing that lands for you. And for me, for some strange reason, it was The Secret.
It's what?
Was The Secret.
Oh, The Secret, yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't even the book. I hated the book. It was the audio tape that I listened to while I was on the treadmill.
Right, it's the way it's presented.
But they put it in terms of you manifest things.
Yes.
And I didn't take the metaphysical part of that where you leverage the universe and it starts working for you like this big gear. I took it on the psychological part of it, is that what you think about you drive towards.
Right.
Negative or positive, you drive towards it. And so you have to be careful about what you think. You have to be careful about your negative. You have to be careful about your dominant thought, because you are going to generate that. Because if that's your dominant thought, your mind keeps looking for ways to make that happen.
Right,
and it doesn't
loop
know
back to what it knows.
It doesn't know negative and positive.
Right.
It just knows that's what she's thinking about. I'm going to give her that. And you
Right.
get there somehow.
Right, because it's reinforcement. It's the basis of behaviorism, of cause effect, cause effect,
Yep.
cause effect. It's you do something and this is the response. You do something, this is the response. It's just a practiced, reinforced, consequential behavioral pattern that you get into. Right? So that's speaking to, if I have a negative thought over and over again and you ask me to have something different, I'm not going to let go.
Right.
You're grieving the loss of what you know.
Plus, and
That's huge.
we've seen this principle, like, I don't know if you've ever seen a car that you never knew existed. And then for weeks after that, that's all you see. This is the same principle. And what
Yes.
happens is, if you think negative thoughts, your mind is going to, it sifts through stimulus.
Yes.
And if you're threat generating all the time, it's going to do nothing but show you threats. It's going to
Right.
ignore everything else.
Right.
If you're opportunity based, it's going to show you opportunities.
Right.
You're going to find what you look for, so be careful what you're looking for.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
I think that that's, I mean, we have the benefit of having done this work, whereas you can get to this place where you can manifest, and that's a great word for it.
Yeah.
You're going to manifest. But that
And it's
about
scary
it's,
works
it's saying
too.
that you have responsibility for yourself, and people like to say, I didn't make myself this way. Well, it didn't happen to you. Some
Right.
things happen to people, absolutely.
Sure.
Abuse and things like that. But when you're talking to yourself negatively and you're now coming into adulthood and you can start having good self-awareness because you're an abstract hypothetical reasoner and all those things, you have a way to change this narrative by manifesting something different. And the stuck point, though, Lou, is that people get stuck in the letting go of what they know because it's a loss. It's like a death. It's a self-death in
Yes.
many people, because this is who I am. This is who I know. I don't know this other person, and there's no guarantee. So I'd rather do this, and to get someone to jump to the other side through baby steps and sometimes full on is amazing, because what a change it is if someone's willing to do the work. I have this huge group of women that are doing good recovery work in addiction that I've had for a few years that are, they all came to me through each other, and so they're all like at little different stages in recovery from different afflictions, and they all have this one shared thing, is that they all were willing to do the work.
Yep.
There's not one of them that has looked for the quick fix. They've all acknowledged that it's a loss of who they were, to buy into a storyline that I said, if you stay on the course, give it a year, give it to, a couple of them now are 5-6 years in with me, and they're
Yep.
like, oh my God, and we always look back and say, remember when this was, and now look. And it's, if I had told them then, like, this will be this way 5 years from now, they would never believe me, because they were wed to the storyline, and we've just whittled away the story and rewritten it over here. And they can't even believe that used to be the storyline.
But the addiction recovery path comes from the addict who
Right.
thinks that the drug is in control.
Right.
And the recovered addict who thinks they're in control.
Right.
And this is, again, giving it up to the external or taking responsibility for it.
Right.
Recovered addicts universally are exhibiting control. They're exerting control.
Right.
Active addicts are universally,
Out of control.
they're subject to outside influences, the drug or the
Exactly.
alcohol
and
or
they
whatever
feel
it
that
is.
they don't have the control over it, because and that's why I always say no person in addiction wants to be in addiction.
Right.
And then there's so there's three things. There's addiction, and this is life too, for people that aren't saying, that are saying, I can't relate, I'm not an addict. No.
No, this is every life
This is all lives.
storyline. Yeah.
You're in your crap, and then you're not in your crap, and then you're recovering from your crap. Most people are either in their crap,
Yeah.
or they just stop doing the crap. But it's then, where do you get the good stuff? Well, it's in the recovery process, because you can. It's easier to paint the picture. So if I'm an alcoholic, and I stop using alcohol, now I'm in sobriety.
Yeah.
You can stay in sobriety forever just by not using something.
Right.
but you still have the behaviors, the thoughts, the feelings, the things that are driving your agitation, your resentments, your anger, your sabotage of self, your low self-esteem, all those things. That's part of sobriety, because you've only stopped doing the behavior, but the things that were driving the behavior, what's happening. So there's many people who just sit in that middle ground, more than not.
Well, this is why
but
it's
then
not
recovery, which is the space of changed narrative. You've changed your story. You've edited your weight issue. You've edited your alcohol and drug issue, your sex, your gambling, your low self-esteem, your anxiety, your depression. This is across the board. You don't have to be an addict by definition. This is across the board. You're either in your stuff, you're recovering, or you're recovering, and there's an in-between that's just practicing not doing the thing.
This is why it's not a one-step program.
Right.
It's not stop taking a drug or stop drinking.
Right.
There's 12 steps, and a lot of that deals with dealing with all the things that led up to the addiction.
Right.
Right.
And in the middle of it, you can stop. You can stop doing the thing, and then if your story is still, well, I'm not doing it the same way I did before, but this is how I was raised. I get that. This is how I was raised. It's I often hear like, it's genetic.
Yeah.
It's a thyroid issue.
Yep.
It's in my genes.
Yep.
It's okay. That's great.
Yeah.
It could be.
Your hands are off the wheel. I mean,
right.
What do we do?
I have no responsibility for taking anything,
exactly.
but that's, not true. I have, and I use this in my client work. I have genes that have obesity. I have genes that have addiction. I have genes that have all kinds of stuff in them, diabetes, heart disease, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't mean I still won't get them, but I'm doing everything I can to make sure, with full-on knowledge, that if I eat that, it could create blah, blah, blah. If I drink that, it could certainly create blah, blah, blah. So I'm always mindful of that, so that when I'm making a choice, I'm doing an active, owned choice to keep my storyline going, because I certainly could easily fall into the obesity range in my family, diabetes, heart issues, alcoholism, because it's all sitting square around me all over my family. And that's for most people.
This is why the weight loss thing for me was so important, because I remember thinking, I had 40 extra pounds than I have now, and I remember thinking, well, I'm of a certain age. I have the pounds.
Right.
I just passed it off to that.
Right.
And I remember having all kinds of back issues, and it might have had to do with the weight. I'm not really sure, but I had all these back issues, and I just went, well, I'm of a certain age. I have the back issues. It just comes with it. And then I went in and had the back issues fixed. And it was like, okay, maybe it's not an age thing.
Right.
It's the way I was treating it, or the way I wasn't treating it.
Right.
And when I started with the weight loss, you start to learn these skills, and then the thing about weight loss that's so great is you get quantifiable return.
Right.
In other words, you start, the first thing, I always tell everybody the first thing is just log your food. Just find out what you're eating.
Exactly.
Because everybody's thought when they say weight loss, I got to lose 30 pounds. And that's so daunting.
No.
It's not where you start. You start with, well, let's see what we're eating.
Right. Let's see
how many calories am I
count
taking?
Everything.
Yeah. And then that automatically gets you say, geez, I really don't need those calories, or I got to be able to do better than that. And then you get into the calorie deficit thing where you find out what you're burning and find out what you're eating. Right. And then you start gaming it, and it becomes a game, but you get tangible results, and you start to learn that taking control, you can take control, and you'll get positive results.
Well, yeah, and I think in given that example, if you take control, you can take control by small little things, because again, going back to the hoarding house issue that I talked about, like if you look at the whole house and have to clean it all at once, oh my God. Same thing with weight, same thing with addiction, right? If you're looking at yourself and going, I eat 3 meals a day. I don't know why I'm heavy. You're not eating 3 meals a day. Yeah. You're eating 3 meals, and then you're not counting the handful of M&Ms and the stack of chips and the Mountain Dew that you had, but you didn't have the cake today, or whatever. It's the mind game. But if you start little things like, I'm not drinking soda anymore with sugar. And that's going to be out for the rest of my life until further notice. I'm not going to eat anything after 8 o'clock at night unless it's water or tea. I'm going to make sure that I get up and move 20 minutes a day. I'm going to make sure that I'm at a 500 calorie deficit compared to what I've burned a day. Yep. And that, people who sit sedentary at their jobs all day and then they don't move and then they're consuming 2,000 and 3,000 calories. Well, we know a pound is how much?
3,500 calories.
3,500 calories. Mm-hmm. And a normal range person, males should have 15 to 1800 calories, sometimes 2000, just depending on height and weight. This is generalized, a day. And then and that's just to maintain. If you're trying to lose weight, you have to have a 500 calorie deficit a day to lose a pound a week. So you have to do the math, and people have to educate themselves to know how to take control over themselves, because if you don't know how much calorie you're putting in, and for people who are overeaters or emotional eaters or binge eaters, you have to know how many calories you're really taking in so that you can look at calories burned a day minus calories taken in. So you have 500 calorie deficit or more.
Yeah.
And people
so
don't realize that.
You start finding all your areas of control. You can not eat this and eat something else instead and save 200 calories.
Right.
Or you can go out for the walk and burn 250 calories.
Right.
And so I used to describe to people all the time, they asked about diet and things like that, and he goes, I just didn't eat stupid 100% of the time.
Well, yeah, and so just but what you just said is like, I didn't eat stupid 100% of the time. You changed your narrative from what you had before. You edited your story.
Yeah.
And that's the premise of the main piece of the show today.
My story was, I'm of a certain age, I can eat
story.
that. Yeah. I'm of a certain age, there's nothing I can do, I can eat that.
Right.
That was my story.
And so you revamped your story to
just don't eat stupid 100% of the time.
Just don't eat stupid 100% of the time. And I think you did other editing to your story too.
Oh, sure.
Clearly, but that's where you got into that mode, and that's the perfect point of the show today, is that you have made a change. Like many people make changes in my life in terms of my client base and friends around me, is that, and I'm always telling people, you got to change your story. If you're always doing the same thing over and over again and you're getting the same result, definition of insanity, right? You're going to have that. Well, if you can be consistent in doing all that negative stuff, you can be consistent in doing the other good stuff.
21 days to make a habit, right?
If you can be an addict, you can be in recovery. If you can be overweight, you can be right on point. If you can be over exerciser, you can be. You take your narrative and you have to shift it, and everyone's going to have a little different shift because you have to look at what's going on. But it's taking responsibility to change your storyline.
Yeah.
You are the editor of your own story.
And I think money and weight are two great places to start, because you get quantifiable results early and you start to get a positive momentum, and it teaches you the skills to do this with everything. That if I do good things, if I watch my narrative, if I keep my focus where it's supposed to be, good things are going to happen. It's like I remember doing Mint. I don't know how many people have heard of Mint online. You link up all your bank accounts, keeps track of all your transactions, tells you where you're spending money. Accountability, just like the food.
Right.
And it's like, I spend how much a month at Dunkin' Donuts? Mm-hmm. And, you just find ways, and then you just put a couple bucks together. That's what I'm telling my daughter. Just commit to putting $100 a week away.
Well, and that's part of changing your narrative. If you know how much money you spend a week, and then, or if you do, so first of all, if you don't know how much money you spend a week, and you're always saying, I don't have money to do that, I don't have money to do that, but you're always going out for dinner, and you're always going out for lunch, and you're buying coffees and all this stuff, and then you realize, well, and I do this with clients, and I say, how much money did you spend at Dunkin' Donuts this week, or how much money did you spend at Starbucks, and how many times did you go through the drive-thru, and how many times did you go out to eat, and let's add it up, and they do, and they're like, oh. Yeah. And it's still interesting, because there's some people that I've done that with, and it doesn't change them, and they still are the help-rejecting complainer. Like, but that doesn't matter. That's not the thing. Well, you're complaining you don't have money. Yeah. But look at the money.
But you get people stressing about living paycheck to paycheck and how stressful that is, and then you get, at a certain point, you put a couple months away, you've got money in the bank, and your whole life changes. Your whole narrative changes. Everything changes. Because you have a certain level, that stress is gone, and you can make good decisions, and you're not panicking all the time.
And I liken this, so what we're just talking about, like all the different examples, is I liken it to keeping it in the storyline that when people don't move on this, their story's not editing because they have writer's block. Yeah. Right? If you've ever gone to write a paper or write a book or whatever, like we've done, right? And all of a sudden you're looking at the paper like, huh. It's the same thing that happens to people who want to make a change but don't know how. They get writer's block. They don't know how to edit their story, but they actually do. It's the fear of jumping into changing the storyline. It's like, I have to change the plot. I have to change the protagonist in this. I have to change the antagonist in this. What am I looking? It's like writing a story.
I think it's largely, I don't want to accept responsibility.
It's
for this
well,
outcome.
at the end of the day, it's taking responsibility for yourself.
And then what happens is when you do this a little bit and you start to get some positive results, you understand the benefits of taking control. And then
Right.
you start to build momentum on that.
Right. Well, and I think that's where you get a lot of backlash. And you've done enough shows, and certainly I teach about this with my class all the time, and the addiction counselors that I teach and everything, and with my clients, is that when a person has to take responsibility, then it also implies that they've made a choice, and people don't like to think that that's a choice, that
Right.
it's just happening to them.
Right.
It's like, no, like addiction is genetic, yes, but once you've taken something, everything after that is a choice.
Yeah.
It's now, do you need help with the choice? Sure. Do you need help to have yourself resourced around support? Yes. But everything's a choice after that. It's not a choice to be an addict. It's not a choice to be an overeater or obese. It's a choice that you're making every time you put something in your mouth. It's
Right.
a choice that you're making every time that you react. You have anger management issues. You may have anger management issues because it runs in your family and you were socially modeled that.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean that you don't have a choice every time you get upset to not make a different choice. And that's people, it's interesting because when I first put that out there in class, I always do it like as a big dropout to see like the controversy that comes up. It's not a choice. Well, no, but yes, it is, because at the end of the day, you have to take responsibility for your story.
That's a huge, delicate point with addicts.
Yes.
In the whole addiction discussion, the whole choice thing is a really delicate point.
Right.
But again, active addicts don't believe there's a choice. Recovering addicts understand there's a choice.
Well, yes,
It's
because
about
once a person's
achieving that
So there's a
understanding.
difference between sobriety and recovery. People who are in sobriety oftentimes will be very adamant about this isn't a choice. People in good recovery, time and again, will absolutely be on point with what I'm saying, is that you have to understand that narrative is that every time you actively pick up something knowing that it's going to create this consequence, it's a choice.
Right.
Now, 6 of one, half dozen the other with all the other words, but it still comes down to, you can have a genetic link. You can have a genetic link for diabetes. If you know you have diabetes in your family and you actively eat junk and you actively gain weight, or don't gain weight but still eat junk, you're making choices knowing that you're setting yourself up for a problem.
Your genetic predisposition isn't a choice, but how you approach it is a choice.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the what's your narrative on it? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I'm Irish, so.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Me too,
So
right?
genetic predisposition, but I can act on it differently.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so so that's to the point of the whole show, using the personal experiences of both of us, right? Is that the tip from today would be that in order to get out of your writer's block and onto a different page and write a new story or write a new day-to-day page, is that you have to look at, hey, what is something that I can actually do different today?
Yep.
What is something that I can say, hey, this is a different way of looking at it, and not feeling threatened that I'm changing the whole thing all at once? Because if you put those things together, obviously not in life-threatening situations, like think people that are really on the edge kind of thing,
Sure.
but when you're doing a day-to-day thing, this isn't going to accumulate, and you're going to get a greater story outcome because you're manifesting a storyline that's way healthier.
Yep.
That's the end goal of the day. Anyway, the time on the clock is over because we were having such a good time today with all of our stuff at the beginning. Right. And so, anyway,
we rewrote the narrative during the show.
We did. We did.
Yeah.
This is a wonderful weekend to have a good narrative story start something different. So for Memorial Day, go into the summer months, doing maybe something different daily and writing a story daily and not buying into the old storylines, and creating something new. But till next week, happy Memorial Day. Be safe out there. Make good choices for yourself and have a great weekend.